The galaxy had known war for centuries. Star systems rose and fell, empires clashed, and countless lives were lost in battles that spanned planets and moons. Among the fiercest of these powers was the Krillian Empire, ruled by the imposing and brilliant Queen Zyra. Her army was unmatched in strength, and her fleets could crush entire human colonies without effort. For decades, humans had resisted, surviving against overwhelming odds, but the price of conflict grew heavier each year. In the heart of the human alliance, a council met to discuss the latest developments. Leaders argued, shouted, and sometimes fell silent as they considered their options. Weapons were being stockpiled, but there was little hope for a peaceful resolution. Yet among them was one man who had seen enough war to understand the true cost of violence. Commander Ethan Vance had spent years leading human forces against alien invaders. He had been on worlds that no human had walked before, facing creatures that no one else could understand. He had survived when others did not because of brute strength, but because of his mind, his careful planning, and his unwillingness to give up. Now Ethan sat quietly as the council debated. He was not a politician, but he understood diplomacy better than most of them. "We cannot keep fighting blindly," he said finally, his voice steady. "The Krillians are strong, yes. But strength alone does not make them invincible. There is a way to end this without losing more lives. One human representative, someone they can trust, could stand with them. If we show them our willingness to cooperate, we can save countless lives." Even those who doubted him could not ignore his record. Meanwhile, far across the stars, Queen Zyra considered her own problems. Her empire was vast, but the human resistance was persistent. She had offered battles, negotiations, and threats, yet nothing had forced humans into submission. She was clever, and she understood that brute force could not achieve true control. To secure her empire, she needed stability. And stability, she realized, might come in the form of an unlikely gesture, a human alliance. The Krillian court was filled with advisors, generals, and nobles, all bowing or kneeling in her presence. Queen Zyra sat on her throne, tall and radiant, her alien features sharp yet elegant, her eyes glowing faintly with an inner light. She was aware that humans often underestimated her, calling her ruthless or cold, but she knew the truth. Compassion and intelligence were far more dangerous than weapons. She made a decision that shocked her own council. "We will propose a union," she said calmly, her voice echoing through the hall. "A human representative will join our court. They will marry one of our own. It is not for love, but for peace. Let it be known that the Krillian Empire is willing to end this war if humans are willing to accept." The message reached the human council within days. Ethan was summoned. He expected new orders, perhaps even a new battle plan. Instead, he was met with a proposal that stunned him. The Krillians wanted peace, and the key to that peace was him. They asked him to marry Princess Leora, Queen Zyra's niece and a respected figure in the Empire. The marriage would symbolize trust and cooperation, a bond that could end the war without further bloodshed. Ethan was silent for a long moment. His mind raced. Accepting meant leaving everything he knew, walking into an alien court that did not trust him, and taking on a role he had never imagined. Yet he also knew the cost of refusal. More lives would be lost, countless worlds destroyed, and the war could last decades more. He finally nodded. "I will do it," he said. "Not for glory, not for honor, but for peace." Cities rose in sharp, elegant spires, their surfaces reflecting light in dazzling patterns. Alien life moved through the streets, creatures of shapes and sizes humans had never imagined. The air was thick with the hum of advanced technology, yet alive with a strange energy that humans could sense but not name. Upon arrival, Ethan was met by Princess Leora. She was striking with a presence that commanded attention without demanding it. Her features were unlike any humans, her skin iridescent in certain lights, her eyes bright and intelligent. She regarded Ethan with a mixture of curiosity and caution. He bowed politely, not out of fear but respect. "You are Commander Ethan Vance?" she asked, her voice melodic yet firm. "I am," he replied. "I understand the stakes of this union, Princess." Rituals were unfamiliar. Every gesture and protocol had to be learned quickly, for missteps could be taken as disrespect. Leora guided him patiently, but even she could not hide her doubts. Humans were strange, unpredictable, and fragile compared to Krillian norms. Yet she could see something in him that others could not, a strength that went beyond muscles or weapons. It was in the way he thought, the way he observed, the way he remained calm even in tension. The wedding was arranged in the grand Krillian Hall, a massive space of shining metals and crystalline structures. Delegates from both humans and Krillians attended. The ceremony was not meant to be romantic. It was political, symbolic, a signal to the galaxy that a new era was beginning. Yet despite the formalities, Ethan noticed Leora's subtle glances, the way she adjusted her posture to be closer to him, a silent acknowledgement that perhaps they were allies in more than just politics. No one could ignore the tension. Human and Krillian eyes were upon him. Every move mattered. Every word was weighed. Even so, Ethan walked with confidence, showing no fear. He had been trained for war, yes, but diplomacy required a different kind of courage. As the ceremony proceeded, whispers began among the Krillian delegates. Humans were capable of much. They had always been underestimated, but Ethan's calm decisiveness, his attention to detail, and his willingness to act without hesitation drew notice. Leora felt a spark of admiration for him, though she did not yet fully understand why. He was human, yet he carried himself with a presence that rivaled any Krillian warrior or diplomat. After the ceremony, celebrations were planned, but not everyone was pleased. Hidden among the guests were rebels, both human extremists who opposed cooperation and alien factions who sought to maintain war. They had watched Ethan closely, seeing him as a potential threat to their plans. One whispered word, one careful signal, and disaster could strike at any moment. Ethan sensed the tension, though he did not know the details. His instincts, honed in countless battles, told him to be cautious. He moved among the guests, speaking politely, learning faces and alliances, noticing the slightest signs of suspicion. Leora remained at his side, observing him with growing respect. She could see that this human was more than he appeared. He was aware of danger, yet he did not let fear control him. He thought ahead, planned his movements, and adapted to circumstances. That night, as the twin suns set over the Krillian capital, Ethan looked out from the palace balcony. The city shimmered with light and life, a marvel of alien engineering. Yet beyond the beauty, he knew lay danger. Rebels would act, enemies would plot, and the weight of peace rested on his shoulders. But he also felt hope. Perhaps humans and Krillians could find common ground. Perhaps war could end. Perhaps in this fragile moment, the galaxy might see the strength of one human willing to act with courage and wisdom. And unknown to him, Queen Zyra watched as well. She had seen many humans, many leaders, many warriors. Few had impressed her, and fewer still had survived the scrutiny of her court. But Ethan Vance was different. Calm, observant, unyielding when it mattered, he carried the air of a man who could change the course of history. She did not yet know the full extent of his capabilities, but a seed of recognition had been planted. This human might not only survive her court, he might inspire it. The first night in the Krillian palace passed without incident, but Ethan knew the peace was delicate. One misstep could undo everything. Yet he remained confident. He had faced impossible odds before. He had survived battles that seemed hopeless. And now he faced a different kind of war, the war to unite two peoples, to bridge differences, and to prove that humans were more than their enemies believed. In the silence of the Krillian night, Ethan felt the weight of responsibility settle upon him. But he did not shrink from it. He embraced it. For he understood something that few others did. True strength was not just in weapons or armies, but in courage, wisdom, and the willingness to act when others faltered. The galaxy was watching, and so was the Krillian court. One human had stepped into their world, not as a conqueror, but as a hope. And hope, Ethan knew, could be stronger than any weapon. The Krillian palace was vast, its halls stretching far beyond what any human could imagine. Towers of shimmering crystal rose toward the twin suns outside, and corridors echoed with sounds unfamiliar to Ethan. The alien attendants moved with grace and precision, their bodies flowing in ways humans could not replicate. For someone used to battlefields and war rooms, this world was another kind of challenge, a test of patience, observation, and subtle understanding. Princess Leora guided Ethan through the first days, showing him ceremonial routines, the importance of gestures, and even how to respond to greetings that seemed impossible to human logic. "Do not bow too low," she said one morning, her voice calm but firm. "And keep your hands visible at all times. Krillians notice everything. Every slight is recorded, remembered. You must move like water, human. Observe, adapt, respond. That is how we survive here." He saw Krillian guards whispering to one another, human envoys casting suspicious glances, and in the distance the faint signs of unrest. Peace was fragile, and everyone knew it. During his first formal dinner in the Krillian court, Ethan met dozens of important figures. Each spoke in precise tones, their words layered with meaning. Some tested him openly, making statements designed to confuse or provoke. Others observed silently, measuring his reactions. Ethan responded carefully, listening first, asking questions, and demonstrating knowledge of both human and Krillian history. By the end of the evening, a few nods of approval had been earned, small victories that mattered greatly in a court where trust was hard to gain. Leora watched him closely, her initial skepticism slowly giving way to curiosity. Humans had been seen as fragile and limited for centuries, yet Ethan's calm, intelligent responses revealed a strength that was rare even among Krillians. "He thinks like a strategist," she whispered to a distant aide. "Not only does he anticipate actions, he understands motivations." He could be something more than they expected. Late one evening, alarms echoed through the palace. Ethan had been studying holographic maps in his quarters when Leora burst in. "They are attacking," she said, urgency in her eyes. "Not the city itself, but the lower courts, rebels, both human and Krillian factions. They want to sabotage the peace." The palace was unfamiliar. He did not know the layout completely, and the allies he could trust were uncertain. Yet instinct kicked in. He followed Leora through hidden corridors, moving swiftly toward the source of the disturbance. The lower courts were in chaos. Guards clashed with attackers who moved with deadly precision. Humans, aliens, and hybrid technology made the environment confusing and dangerous. Ethan quickly assessed the situation, identifying key threats and vulnerable points. Using a combination of tactical commands and careful observation, he directed guards to secure critical areas, prevented collateral damage, and neutralized several attackers without unnecessary harm. His ability to remain calm and act decisively drew attention from both sides. Princess Leora followed closely, assisting where she could but allowing Ethan to lead. She was impressed by his clarity under pressure. While Krillians relied on brute strength and overwhelming power, Ethan relied on strategy, anticipation, and a keen understanding of human behavior. He moved like a river, finding paths where none seemed possible, turning potential disaster into controlled response. After the skirmish, the attackers were captured or driven off. The palace was safe for now, but the message was clear. Not everyone supported the peace. Ethan and Leora walked through the halls, now quiet except for the occasional distant alarm. Leora's expression was thoughtful. "You handled that remarkably," she said. "Most Krillians would have charged blindly, relying on numbers. You adapted. Violence alone solves nothing if it creates chaos." Others tried to appeal to his emotions, offering alliances or subtly threatening the humans back home. Ethan listened, asked questions, and offered thoughtful responses. Each action, each word was deliberate, demonstrating intelligence and integrity that won respect from many, though not all. During one such meeting, a Krillian general spoke harshly. "You are a human," he said. "You have no place here among the leaders of an empire. How can we trust your judgment?" Ethan's words were simple, yet they carried weight. In a world where deception was common, a human who spoke truthfully with confidence was unusual, almost unsettling. Meanwhile, Leora began to notice something else. Ethan was not only intelligent but empathetic. When the captured rebels were brought before the court, he did not advocate unnecessary punishment. Instead, he sought understanding. Why had they acted? Could the root causes be addressed? His approach was revolutionary to Krillians, who often dealt with dissent through fear or elimination. Leora found herself admiring his wisdom and fairness. One evening, while walking through the palace gardens, Leora asked, "Do you truly believe this peace can last?" "People respect strength, but they trust those who act with honor." A delegation of alien nobles challenged Ethan to a ceremonial duel, a tradition meant to demonstrate skill, discipline, and authority. Humans were not accustomed to Krillian combat techniques, which combined physical strength, agility, and psychic awareness. Many expected Ethan to fail, but he did not falter. Observing the nuances of the duel, he used logic, timing, and careful strategy to counter his opponents. He moved swiftly, deflecting blows and creating openings not through brute force but through calculated action. By the end, the nobles acknowledged his competence, nodding in respect. Leora watched from the sidelines, impressed not just by his skill, but by his ability to adapt quickly to alien methods. Word of his success spread through the palace. Human observers whispered among themselves. "He is not just a soldier," one said. "He is a mind unlike any Krillian." Even Queen Zyra, observing from her private chambers, felt a flicker of curiosity. She had seen many humans and most failed to impress her. Yet Ethan demonstrated calm, intelligence, and resourcefulness that hinted at something greater. Despite these successes, danger remained. Intelligence reports indicated that some rebels were planning another attack, this one more dangerous, more coordinated, and potentially devastating. Ethan and Leora worked together to strengthen defenses, analyze threats, and prepare contingencies. They spent long hours in war rooms and corridors, learning to trust each other's judgment. Through it all, Ethan never lost sight of the human side of the mission. He cared for the people around him, treating guards, attendants, and even prisoners with respect. His actions inspired loyalty, not fear. Leora, observing this, began to understand why the human alliance had survived against overwhelming odds. It was not just technology or numbers. It was humans themselves, their courage, their wisdom, their unwillingness to give up in the face of adversity. And then one night, a shadow fell over the Krillian capital. Ethan, patrolling with Leora near the outer walls, noticed unusual movement. Scouts reported multiple intruders moving swiftly, coordinated, and silent. He realized immediately another attack was underway, and it was larger than before. "Prepare the defenses," he said calmly, his voice steady. "We will meet them, but we will not panic. Remember, our strength is not just in weapons. It is in coordination, strategy, and courage." And though the outcome was uncertain, one thing was clear. Humans, even one human, could make a difference in ways the galaxy had never imagined. Ethan moved into the shadows, his mind focused, his heart steady. He was a human among aliens, a soldier among diplomats, a symbol of hope in a fragile world. And as the first signs of attack appeared on the horizon, he knew that the next hours would define not just the future of the Krillian Empire, but the legend that humanity was beginning to write among the stars. The Krillian palace had never seen a night like this. Shadows moved quickly across the walls, and distant alarms echoed through the corridors. Ethan had barely finished his patrol when reports reached him of coordinated attacks across multiple wings of the palace. The intruders were not mere rebels. They were skilled, organized, and well-equipped, aiming to destabilize the fragile peace before it could truly begin. Ethan quickly assessed the situation. The Krillian guards were brave, but unprepared for this level of planning. The human and Krillian leaders had underestimated the lengths to which extremists would go to prevent cooperation. He did not panic. Panic was a weakness. He had faced impossible odds on countless worlds, and he knew the key to surviving was clear thinking, strategy, and swift action. "Leora," he said, motioning for her to follow, "we need to secure the key corridors and protect the council chambers. Everyone must remain calm and coordinated. The attackers will exploit confusion, not just strength. We must also protect the delegates. They will be the first targets." His mind worked like a finely tuned machine, blending human intuition with tactical experience. The first confrontation came near the grand atrium. Several intruders had breached the perimeter, their armor reflecting the pale light of the palace. Krillian guards engaged them immediately, but it was chaotic. Ethan did not charge blindly. Instead, he observed the patterns, noted the attackers' weaknesses, and directed his forces to exploit them. Using a combination of Krillian technology and human improvisation, he turned a potential massacre into a controlled engagement. He dispatched a small team to cut off retreat routes, using energy barriers and careful positioning to isolate the attackers. Others were instructed to protect civilians, moving them to secure chambers. Every command was precise, every decision deliberate. The palace seemed to pulse with energy, not just from the alien technology, but from the combined focus of humans and Krillians working under Ethan's guidance. Princess Leora fought at his side, her skills impressive, yet she quickly realized that his strength was not in raw power. It was in vision, foresight, and the ability to unite disparate forces. "You see what I cannot," she admitted quietly as they moved between halls. "You anticipate their moves before they make them. But I watch, I think, and I act decisively when the time comes. Fear and hesitation are the enemies tonight, not them." He led squads into tight corridors, directing fire, coordinating defenses, and protecting civilians. Every human and Krillian under his command gained confidence. They began to move in harmony, trusting his judgments, even when the situation seemed impossible. At one point, a section of the palace collapsed under a controlled explosion meant to slow the attackers. Ethan had predicted it, positioning guards and civilians safely, and used the rubble to trap a group of intruders. The ease with which he transformed danger into opportunity drew attention. Whispers spread among the Krillian soldiers. This human, small and fragile by their standards, commanded forces with more clarity than most generals they had known. Queen Zyra, observing from her private chamber, leaned forward with interest. She had seen humans fight before, but few had impressed her intellect or composure. Yet Ethan's actions demonstrated something rare. Not only could he survive, he could inspire others to perform beyond their limits. She studied him carefully, noticing how he balanced caution with boldness, how he respected life even while in combat, and how his strategies were precise, efficient, and effective. Meanwhile, Leora found herself relying on him more than she had expected. She had been trained in diplomacy and combat, yet Ethan's approach was different. Where Krillians often relied on brute force or intimidation, he used understanding, planning, and psychology. His decisions considered not only immediate danger but long-term effects. He fights for more than victory, she realized aloud. He fights for survival, for honor, for something greater than himself. The coordinated attackers were repelled, captured, or neutralized. The alarm finally subsided, leaving silence that was almost deafening. Ethan and Leora walked through the atrium, surveying the aftermath. Guards were exhausted but alive. Civilians were safe. Damage had been contained. "You did it," Leora said softly. "The palace survived because of you." "Not just me. Everyone played their part. I only helped them see the path. They made the choices, followed the plan. Courage is contagious if it is guided properly." Even prisoners who had been captured earlier noted the fairness and efficiency with which he had managed the crisis. The next day, the council convened to assess the situation. Ethan and Leora were present, alongside key human and Krillian leaders. Reports detailed the coordinated attacks, the losses, and the prevention of greater disaster. When it was Ethan's turn to speak, he did not boast. He spoke clearly, outlining strategies that had worked, mistakes that had been avoided, and lessons learned. His focus was on improving the future, not celebrating past victories. Queen Zyra listened, silent at first. She had expected a human to falter under pressure, to rely on luck or brute strength. Instead, she saw something extraordinary: intelligence, leadership, and a profound understanding of both human and Krillian nature. She could no longer dismiss him as merely a human representative. He was becoming a symbol, a figure whose actions had consequences far beyond himself. Leora watched him with admiration, her initial skepticism replaced by respect. "You are more than I imagined," she whispered to herself. "More than anyone could have predicted, perhaps more than the Queen even realizes." Soldiers followed Ethan's guidance with newfound confidence, realizing that one human could inspire them to act with coordination, courage, and efficiency. Even simple tasks took on new significance. Ethan walked among the soldiers, checking supplies, offering advice, and demonstrating small techniques that improved their effectiveness. Krillians, initially skeptical of human methods, began to adopt them. Leora observed the subtle transformations. The palace was no longer just a place of hierarchy and obedience. It was becoming a space where collaboration and ingenuity mattered, where courage and intelligence were recognized above rank or species. Meanwhile, intelligence reports continued to arrive. Rebels were regrouping, seeking revenge for their failed attacks. Ethan knew this was only the beginning. One battle did not end conflict. It revealed potential, and potential always attracted attention, both from allies and enemies. He began planning preemptive measures, strengthening defenses, and creating rapid response protocols that combined human strategy with Krillian technology. The combination was powerful. Where Krillians relied on overwhelming force, humans brought flexibility and adaptability. Where humans lacked numbers, Krillians supplied strength and advanced equipment. Together, under Ethan's guidance, they were a force the galaxy had not yet seen. One evening, after another day of coordination and planning, Leora joined Ethan on a balcony overlooking the city. The twin suns had set, leaving the sky painted with shimmering lights of alien technology and distant stars. "You have changed more than just the palace," she said quietly. "You have changed how they see humans, how they see possibility. Tonight, I only showed what can happen when courage and intelligence meet opportunity. And the nights after, peace is fragile and hope is easily lost if not protected." The legend of Ethan Vance was beginning, quietly but unmistakably. Even Queen Zyra could not ignore it. She observed him, thinking of the stories her advisors had told her about human limitations. She had seen few humans who could inspire, lead, and strategize with such clarity. This one, she realized, might change the balance of the galaxy itself, not by conquest but by example. And for Ethan, the work was far from over. He had survived the first night of rebellion, earned trust, and inspired both humans and Krillians. But he knew that true leadership required more than a single victory. It required foresight, patience, and the willingness to act when others hesitated. As the twin moons rose over the Krillian capital, Ethan stood with Leora by his side. The city glimmered with life and potential, a reminder of both fragility and resilience. "This is only the beginning," he said quietly. "We have shown what humans can do, but the galaxy will continue to test us, and we must rise to every challenge. And perhaps the galaxy will finally understand the legend within a single human." The Krillian capital was still recovering from the attacks, but the peace they had fought to maintain remained fragile. Ethan Vance had become a figure of quiet respect throughout the palace. Humans and Krillians alike were beginning to understand that one human could inspire courage, intelligence, and strategy in ways that even the most powerful Krillians had not anticipated. Yet, while the palace breathed a temporary sigh of relief, the galaxy outside had not stopped turning. Reports arrived with increasing urgency. A new threat had emerged from the fringes of the known systems. The Xylar Collective, an ancient and ruthless race thought to be extinct, had returned. Entire star systems had fallen without warning, their defenses crushed by an enemy whose technology and tactics were beyond comprehension. The Xylar were fast, relentless, and utterly without mercy. They saw the Krillians as a threat to their expansion, and humans as obstacles to be eradicated. Ethan listened carefully as Leora and the Council briefed him on the intelligence. Maps displayed the latest attacks, highlighting patterns that hinted at Xylar fleet movements. "They strike with speed and precision," Ethan said, pointing to a cluster of systems now silent. "If they continue like this, they will reach Krillian space before we are ready. Humans are adaptable, Krillians are strong. Together we can meet them in ways they do not expect. We can fight smarter, not just harder." The Xylar were a threat that demanded cooperation, ingenuity, and courage. Ethan spent days studying star maps, analyzing attack patterns, and simulating potential outcomes. He worked closely with Krillian engineers to understand their advanced technology and how it could be used more efficiently. Where Krillians relied on overwhelming firepower, Ethan suggested adaptive tactics, quick strikes, misdirection, and calculated retreats to draw the enemy into traps. Leora observed silently, impressed by how quickly he could learn alien methods and integrate them with human strategies. "We can't fight them like a normal battle," Ethan explained to the Council one morning. "They anticipate strength. We need unpredictability, coordination, and speed. Humans can provide that, Krillians provide the power, and together we can control the battlefield." Slowly, the Krillian fleet commanders began to trust him. Orders were given, units were repositioned, and a sense of controlled urgency spread through the palace and the surrounding defense systems. When the Xylar fleet finally entered Krillian space, the humans and Krillians were ready. Ethan stood on the command deck, surrounded by officers from both species. Screens displayed hundreds of ships moving in perfect formation, tracking enemy positions. His hands moved over holographic controls, issuing commands with calm authority. The first clash was immediate and brutal. Xylar ships struck with precision, targeting Krillian defense stations and attempting to overwhelm the fleets. Yet Ethan's preparations held. Human and Krillian forces moved in harmony, responding to threats with speed and intelligence. Ethan anticipated enemy movements, countering them with strategies that combined Krillian power with human adaptability. In the midst of the battle, a massive Xylar dreadnought approached the Krillian capital. Its size and firepower were terrifying, capable of destroying entire sectors in minutes. Most commanders froze at the sight, unsure how to respond. Ethan did not hesitate. "Divide the fleet," he commanded. "Draw it into the asteroid field, use the terrain, hit it where it is exposed, not where it is strongest." Krillian capital ships followed, their weapons calibrated by Ethan's guidance to strike simultaneously at weak points. Explosions lit the void of space as Xylar technology met combined human Krillian tactics. Slowly, deliberately, the dreadnought was weakened. On the command deck, Leora watched in awe. "He sees everything," she whispered. "Not just the battle, but the possibilities. He thinks 10 moves ahead." Humans were not weak, as many had believed. They were thinkers, innovators, and capable of shaping the tide of war with intellect as much as strength. Queen Zyra observed silently, her initial skepticism replaced with astonishment. She had faced countless humans in her life, most relying on courage and tenacity alone. Ethan combined courage with strategy, compassion with foresight. She began to understand why he had survived, why humans continued to resist, and why one human could inspire both humans and Krillians alike. As the battle raged, Ethan personally directed several high-risk maneuvers, coordinating small teams to disable Xylar weapon systems, redirect energy flows, and cut off reinforcements. He moved with precision, acting decisively where others hesitated. Each success boosted the morale of the troops, and whispers spread throughout the fleet. The human leads us to victory. The Xylar fleet, despite its technological advantage, began to falter. They were unprepared for the coordination, adaptability, and ingenuity of human and Krillian forces working together. Ethan's strategies exploited weaknesses they had never anticipated. One by one, key Xylar ships were disabled or forced to retreat. Finally, the dreadnought itself fell, trapped by a clever combination of human tactics and Krillian firepower. Its destruction was a symbol. The impossible had been made possible, not by numbers or sheer strength, but by intelligence, coordination, and courage. After the battle, the Krillian capital celebrated cautiously. Damage had been contained, casualties were minimized, and the city remained safe. Soldiers and civilians alike hailed Ethan as a hero. He did not claim the glory. He attributed success to teamwork, to the courage of humans and Krillians alike, and to the careful planning that had allowed them to survive. Queen Zyra, however, saw something deeper. She had watched the human at work under pressure, guiding alien fleets, coordinating defenses, and inspiring courage where fear had once reigned. She realized that Ethan was more than a capable commander. He was a symbol of what humanity could achieve, a force that could shape the galaxy not through domination, but through courage, intelligence, and integrity. In a private audience, she approached him quietly. "You have done more than survive," she said. "You have inspired my people, shown them what humans can achieve, and proven that legend is not limited to Krillians or the ancient powers of the galaxy. You are extraordinary. We think, we adapt, we persevere. If that inspires others, then it is a sign that courage and intelligence are more powerful than fear. You are the bridge between worlds." Together, guided by courage, wisdom, and cooperation, they were capable of extraordinary feats. Word of the battle spread beyond Krillian space. Other alien races began to take notice. Humans, long underestimated, had proven that one individual could inspire hope, strategy, and courage on a galactic scale. Ethan's legend was growing quietly but unmistakably. Leora stood beside him one evening, watching the twin moons rise over the capital. "Do you realize what you have done?" she asked. Ethan shook his head. "I have only done what needed to be done. The galaxy will test us again. There are threats we do not yet see. But if humans and Krillians continue to work together, if courage and intelligence guide our actions, we can survive anything." He knew that the Xylar retreat was temporary, that challenges would return, and that the weight of peace was heavier than the weight of war. Yet he also knew something fundamental. Humanity had a place among the stars. Humans were more than survivors. They were thinkers, leaders, and symbols of hope. And through courage, wisdom, and perseverance, they could change the course of the galaxy. The twin moons cast their light over the Krillian capital, reflecting off crystal towers and glowing energy fields. In that light, humans and Krillians alike felt something they had not before: hope. And in that hope, Ethan Vance stood as a symbol, not of conquest, but of the power of one human to inspire a legend across worlds. The galaxy had never been quieter, yet the silence was tense. The Xylar retreat had given the Krillian capital a moment of peace, but Ethan knew it was temporary. The ancient enemy was cunning and relentless. Their return was inevitable. The question was not if they would attack again, but when. Ethan stood on the balcony of the command tower overlooking the city. The twin moons cast silver light on the crystal spires, making them shimmer like frozen stars. Soldiers moved below, preparing defenses, practicing maneuvers, and checking equipment. Humans and Krillians worked side by side, united by the lessons of recent battles. It was a sight that inspired hope, and a reminder of the fragile peace they had fought to maintain. Princess Leora joined him quietly, her presence calm yet commanding. "Do you ever rest?" she asked, half teasing, half serious. Ethan smiled faintly. Rest comes when there is no need for vigilance. Tonight there is always need, but I do not mind. There is work to be done, and I am grateful to do it. You turned a fragile alliance into a force capable of facing the Xylar. You have inspired humans and Krillians alike. The legend of one human is spreading faster than the fleets can move. Krillians survive because they endure. Together we are stronger than either alone. Ethan studied the maps, noting patterns, potential weaknesses, and possible traps. He had learned that the Xylar valued overwhelming force, expecting their enemies to meet strength with strength. That would be their mistake. "Prepare the fleet," he said calmly to the Krillian commanders. "We will not simply meet them in open space. We will guide them into positions where their power is limited and their numbers work against them. Precision, strategy, and unity will be our weapons." Larger Krillian warships held key positions, ready to strike at the moment of vulnerability. Every unit had a role, and every soldier understood the stakes. When the Xylar fleet arrived, chaos seemed inevitable. Their ships moved like a storm, striking rapidly and without mercy. But Ethan remained calm, issuing precise commands. Humans piloted maneuverable ships that could dart between hazards. Krillian firepower was concentrated where it was most effective. Traps laid by Ethan disrupted the Xylar formation, forcing them to split and react. In the midst of the battle, a massive Xylar flagship attempted to breach the inner defenses. Most would have seen it as invincible. Ethan saw an opportunity. "Focus on the junction points," he shouted over the communications network. "Use the asteroid field to limit their maneuvering. Target energy conduits, not weapons." Morale faltered and the enemy began to retreat. On the command deck, Leora watched in awe. "He predicted their every move," she whispered. "He sees the battlefield as a whole, not just ships and weapons. He sees possibilities they cannot even imagine." He directed human and Krillian teams to secure key points, provide aid to damaged ships, and contain threats. The efficiency and intelligence of the operation left the Xylar with no room to recover. By dawn, the battle was over. The Xylar had been repelled, their fleet scattered, their advance halted. The Krillian capital remained safe, its citizens and allies secure. The victory was not won by power alone. It was won by strategy, unity, and courage. Humans had proven that they were more than survivors, more than pawns in a galaxy ruled by stronger forces. They were innovators, leaders, and symbols of hope. Queen Zyra entered the command deck, her eyes reflecting both relief and admiration. "You have done the impossible," she said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of authority. "You have not only protected my people, but you have shown what humans are capable of. You are no longer merely a representative, you are a legend. The true heroes are those who acted with courage today, humans and Krillians alike. You have inspired not only the Krillians, but humanity as well." Now, after battles, strategic victories, and leadership that had inspired both species, he understood that humanity's place in the galaxy was secure, not through fear, not through domination, but through courage, ingenuity, and perseverance. The following weeks were filled with rebuilding and preparation. Humans and Krillians worked together to repair damage, strengthen defenses, and plan for a future where cooperation would replace conflict. Soldiers trained side by side, sharing techniques, strategies, and culture. Civilians learned from one another, discovering that differences were not weaknesses, but strengths to be celebrated. Ethan's reputation spread across the galaxy. Reports of his leadership, intelligence, and courage reached distant systems. Humans who had once been underestimated were now recognized as capable of leadership, innovation, and inspiration. The Krillians, previously skeptical of humans, began to see them as equals and allies, not merely subjects or curiosities. Leora stood beside him one evening, watching the horizon glow with the light of twin moons. "Do you realize what you have done?" she asked. "You have changed how both our species see each other. You have given hope where there was fear, unity where there was division. You are not just a hero, you are the bridge between worlds." Humans have always adapted, always survived, always persevered. If that inspires others, it is proof that courage, wisdom, and integrity can shape the galaxy. Queen Zyra addressed the assembly with a tone that commanded attention. "Commander Ethan Vance has done what no one believed possible," she said. "Through courage, intelligence, and integrity, he has not only defended this capital, but inspired both humans and Krillians. Today, we honor him as a symbol of hope, unity, and the potential of humanity. Let the galaxy remember, humans are not to be underestimated. They are a force that can change the course of history." Now he had become something greater, a symbol, a legend, and a proof that humanity could achieve greatness on a galactic scale. In private, Leora smiled at him. "Do you understand what this means?" she asked. "Your actions will be remembered for generations, not just for victories in battle, but for showing what humans can be. The galaxy will never look at us the same way again." Stories would be told of one human who entered the Krillian capital, faced impossible odds, and inspired two species to act as one. His actions had changed perceptions, strengthened alliances, and created a new era of hope. Humanity had proven that it was more than survivors. It was a force capable of leadership, courage, and innovation. The twin moons rose over the Krillian capital once more. Ethan stood with Leora at his side, overlooking the city and the fleets that now patrolled the borders with renewed confidence. Peace had been won, at least for now, but the galaxy remained vast, full of challenges and full of opportunity. "You have done more than survive," Leora said softly. "You have shown the legend within a human. The galaxy will never forget." One human had changed the galaxy, not through domination or fear, but through courage, intelligence, and the quiet power of legend. The story of Ethan Vance, the human who married for peace and became a symbol of hope, would live in hearts and minds across the stars for generations to come. The galaxy had seen the legend within one human. And now it knew that humanity itself was capable of shaping the future in ways even the oldest empires could not have imagined.